All right, so spring has sprung here in my neck of the woods, and with it comes planting season. And so I thought I'd go over with you here what we got going on. Um, Now, this all ties into my Cookie Monster theory, which I will, link a little photo of the video here that you can check out if you're interested, because it all ties in to that when we're talking about, growing our own food and, things of this nature, because ultimately these type of things lead to independence. And in my opinion, that's a path that we should all be on today. I mean, if you haven't recognized the problems with all of these systems out there that so many rely on, well, then you're simply not paying attention. And when it comes to this topic of growing your own food, it's no different. I mean, with the chemicals and all the spraying that goes on today, I mean, a lot of the vegetables and crop type foods that you would buy from the store, they're tainted, and it's not good. So I think it's in everybody's best interest to try to at least make an attempt at growing your own food. And not only that, but we only have to look back at recent state and national emergencies and see that it doesn't take much for the shelves at the store to be wiped clean, and you don't want to be in that type of predicament. And I don't know, I personally feel like we have entered into some interesting times here once again. And there's a lot of negative things that came along with the 2019-20 time frame, but trying to look at some of the positive things, from a more optimistic view, a lot of people, began to wake up to a lot of truths that, were previously, hidden from them during that time frame. And, a lot of people also began to venture into this journey of growing your own food and gardening and things like this during that time. So I mean, although there was a lot of bad things that happened during that time frame, there was some good that came out of it. But I think we are at a time like that possibly once again here, with the things that are unfolding on the world stage. And we could very likely be heading towards some rough times here. And so I think it's it's in everybody's best interest to at the very least know how to do these things. And so that's what I wanted to kind of go over with you today, where we're at on our property. I am here in the Northeast, I believe planting zone 6B. You will want to consult the growing zone map for where you are per your location to see when is the appropriate times to begin planting. But here, where we're at in mid-April, it is time to get the cold weather, hardier crops in the ground. So last week I was at the Amish and I bought all of our plants that we'll be planting for this part of the season. And then I also bought all my seeds for the next half, which will be around the end of May is when everything else typically goes in the ground. So yeah, I just thought I'd kind of walk you through where we're at and what we're doing. And one of the things that I changed this year and that I plan to really focus in on is the whole topic of heirloom planting, heirloom plants and heirloom seeds, because I do think that this is a very important topic, especially now, because if you're not familiar with this, there are two different types of crops that you can grow. One being of hybrid nature, that is, a genetically modified seed that was modified for certain characteristics, and those are typically the hybrid type seeds that you will see in the stores. But then you also have this heirloom variety, and the heirloom variety is basically just the core natural varieties. Um, and so, in my opinion, these are the ones we should be sticking to. And, I don't think we have to dig too far under the surface to see what it looks like when we start playing around with genetically modifying anything for that matter. And it's no different with seeds, because a lot of these things were genetically modified, for variety and different characteristics. But, a lot of them were also modified to withstand, the spraying of chemicals and things like this from, companies such as Monsanto. And so, I just think it's not a good thing. And I don't think we really have to look too far at how, when we begin to mess with things like this in nature, all we do is screw things up. And so my personal preference moving forward here is to just stick with heirloom, because these are the core natural varieties. It helps simplify the whole process, and not to mention that when those particular plants go to seed themselves, well, those seeds you can keep and store and plant, the following year, which, you cannot do with the hybrid varieties. And so I think it makes sense, because, seed storage should also be something that we take pretty seriously. And I mean, if you think about it, everything is increasing in price today. Even the plants, I buy my plants from the Amish, and a 6-pack of a plant, of a vegetable, is $1.35 now. They used to be under $1. And then the seeds, although you may think, well, they're only, a couple bucks a pack, but if you're trying to grow all your own food, that adds up. And so you can see where you'll be saving a substantial amount of money by, focusing on heirlooms, and also, saving seeds from year to year. And it's been one of my goals to build a greenhouse here on the property. I haven't been able to do it yet, but it's something that I definitely want to do, because I really like to be able to start all of our plants from seed. But for now, what I do is I go to the Amish and I buy their plants, some of them. And then, the other ones, I buy seeds and I plant myself. And so that's what we did last week. I went and grabbed all that stuff, and I thought I'd kind of walk you through what we got going on here, in case this is something you would decide to do, which I would highly recommend. So here's what we got going on. All right, so here is the plants that I purchased from the Amish. And when I say cold weather crops, hardy crops that are good with cold weather, I'm talking about things such as lettuces, Swiss chard, kale. I really like kohlrabies. We do cabbage. You can do broccoli, cauliflower. There's a lot of different things that you can do this time of year. But that's what we got going on here. Like I said, I buy these plants from the Amish. So I trust that, the process in which they do this is, kosher with me. So, I prefer to try and buy these, from them versus, a Lowe's or some other big box store. And then, so these, I'll be getting the garden ready here to get these in the ground. I am a little late. I like to try and have them in the ground by the second week of April, because these plants, once it gets hot, they will bolt. So like these lettuces, we love salads, so I have a bunch of different varieties here. But once we hit the heat of summer, these plants will bolt and become bitter. So you need to get them in the ground here pretty quick. But we'll be eating salads for the next few months here. And that's the other thing with this that you need to keep in mind, and we really need to try and get back to, and that's eating seasonally. Because Obviously, not all crops are available all seasons, and we need to get used to, eating seasonally, because I just think that that's one of our problems. We're expecting to eat everything all year, and I think we need to get used to eating things when they're in season. Um, but I also want to talk to you about the planting in pots such as this, because it doesn't require any space. Anybody can do this. But what I like to do is I make a salad pot up here, like such as this, and this has a few different varieties in it. It has spinach in there, and like 4 or 5 different varieties of lettuces, and I like to keep this right on the deck here so that we can just come out and clip it for salad bowls, and then we'll have more in the garden if we need to get more, but this is usually adequate here during the growing season for a lot of our needs here. And then I have a tomato, a big boy heirloom tomato here that I'm gonna do on the deck as well, so that we have fresh tomatoes. I'm not a real big tomato guy, but my wife enjoys them. But we do grow a lot in the garden for canning season, so we do salsas and whole peeled tomatoes and things like that. We try to put up all of our own stuff when it comes to that each year. Now, real quick, when we're talking about planting tomato plants, what I like to do is plant them very deep. So there is a good probably 6 inches of this tomato plant that is buried in the soil, and then the root ball underneath that. And the reason for doing that is because then the whole trunk of the tomato plant will take on roots. It will begin to root, and it just makes for a stronger, sturdier plant overall to plant them very deeply. And so that's what I like to do. And at the bottom of that hole, before I put the plant in it, I like to bust an egg in there. And so like I took one of our duck eggs and broke into the bottom of that hole and just kind of crushed the shell up and left it all down in there. And then I put like a tablespoon of Epsom salt down in there as well. And then I plant the tomato plant, like I said, very deep, and then cover it up. What I did was right to those 2 lowest branches on the plant. I went right to there, and then these branches will get clipped off here as this plant starts to grow. But I think that's a good practice with all your tomato plants. It'll just help produce a stronger, healthier plant overall. And then I have some different herbs here that I did in pots, but we will also do in the ground out in the garden. I got a Mediterranean mix here of thyme and oregano, and this one is parsley and basil, and there you have some chives. And so I like to have these pots right here on the deck so it's easily accessible. So as you can see, you can do a lot just in pots or buckets. Just make sure you have appropriate drainage out of the bottom of them, and you're going to want to use good soil. So what I do here with these, because in these ones, what I have going on is a variety of half-long carrots is what's planted in the back too, and then because they're a little deeper, as you can see, and then the ones here in the front are beets, and over here we have radishes. So I did these in pots this well as year in these planters, but we will also do them in a raised bed in the garden for canning, and putting up preserves. So I wanted to give this a shot this year with growing these on the deck. But what I do here is I took some composted bedding material from our chicken coop, and I put a layer in the bottom of these, and then on top of that I did a layer of mushroom mulch that was from our garden from the previous year's planting, and then on top of that I did some dead cut grass, and then on top of that there is a layer of regular garden soil from the garden, and then on top of that is the potting mix. And so over time, as these seeds germinate and begin to grow, the material in the planters will begin to break down and provide the proper nutrients to keep them growing and thriving for the remainder of their growing season. And so that's what I did in all of these pots. And you could save a lot of time and effort probably just by using a raised bed soil or a pot, a soil that's made for growing stuff in a pot. I wouldn't suggest just using potting soil, I guess is what I'm getting at. But what you do want is a good potting soil. I like to buy mine from the Amish as well. I trust the brand. I'm fresh out of it, or I show you what I use, but I try and stay away from the big box store stuff as well if you can. But I mean, just do whatever you can. I mean, you don't have to make this complicated in the beginning. But you are going to need a good potting soil. And so what I do is then I have these starter packs that are from these plants, from year to year. And so I have a pile of them. As you can see, there's some there, and I have even more. I mean, I probably have hundreds of these things sitting around from previous years. And then you have these flats that they go in. But what I do is then I fill these up with potting soil. And then you just, follow the instructions on the back of the seed pack. I mean, they're all pretty typically the same. You just stick your finger in there down about a 1/2 inch, throw a seed in it, cover it up. It's pretty simple. I think God made it that way so that we can all do it, and I don't know why more of us do not. But anyway, so that's what I got going on here. And so what I do is I plant the things, and then I will, as you can see here, these are all the garden beans back there in the sink. This is garden beans and cucumbers and squash and zucchini, okra. What else? I think one of these is a mixture of pole beans and sunflower seeds, so that when the sunflower stalk grows up, the pole bean can grow right up with it and have a trellis for it. So I like to do that with one of them. And then I also have some watermelon, I believe, in the bigger ones there, and over here, as well as a few different pumpkin varieties. And then, like I said, the tomatoes and peppers and some things like that, I will just buy as plants from the Amish when the time comes, and all of that stuff will go in the ground. Now, sweet corn, that I like to direct seed, and you can direct seed all of these things, but I prefer to try to have a plant that I can put in the ground, because I mean, they can wash out, not grow, and these type of things can happen. Ants tend to carry your seeds off, different insects get at them, whatever. And then, some of these germination periods are like 14 days. Well, if you direct sow in the ground 14 days and, the seed doesn't germinate or something happens, now you're that much further behind. So I like to try and have everything growing, and I know it's a plant before I put it in the ground with all of this stuff. But with the corn, I do like to direct seed the corn. I think that's the best way to grow it. And so yeah, if we do another big patch of corn, we'll be direct sowing that around the same time we do these crops, with getting these in the ground, which again here in my area will be towards the end of May. We also have out there in our garden, and I run into this every year, in the fall we are so busy with our kids' sports and things like this, I fall behind, and so the garden is an absolute mess. So every spring I'm stuck trying to catch up and get everything cleaned up. So we're at that point here once again, but that's part of it. Just got to embrace it. But also in there, you can see, I don't know if you can see it from here. I'll do a walk through here eventually, but I have a raised bed over there, and in there, that's where we'll do the root crops. And then I also have a patch of blackberries in there. I have a patch of asparagus. And so these are things that come back on their own from year to year. And I also have strawberries in there that are a mixture of everbearing and June bearing. Let's see. I think that's it for that type of stuff. And then the main garden area for planting all of this other stuff. And so I am going to try and do something a little bit different this year. I'd really like to try and get everything into raised beds here eventually. But, you know, soil is like gold, and I really like the whole no tilling method as well. And so that's a matter of just building your soil up from year to year. And so that's why I have my chicken pen right next to the garden, so that I can utilize that compost in the garden. So, you know, that's another part of this whole venture is chickens. And as you can see, there's ducks over there. And we also have a turkey. Tommy, we had 3, but we lost 2 of them. Our hen, not sure what happened to her. She was just MIA the one day. And then Big Jake, he was our other gobbler. He passed away last year to some type of sickness or something. I just came out and he was no longer with us. So anyway, but yeah, chickens, they are known as the gateway drug into homesteading. And so I would also recommend, if you are capable, to get yourself some chickens. I mean, I remember not too long ago, we were looking at $6 dozen eggs, which is absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, you don't want to be up against that whenever things get tough. So I really highly recommend getting you some chickens if you can, you know, with where you're at. And then also, like I said, the compost, you know, it's like gold in the garden. So they serve multiple purposes. And then also this year, I bought some Rudd Rangers, they're called, from I happened to be in Tractor Supply, and I saw that they had some on clearance for $1, and I could not pass it up, so I grabbed all of them. There were 16 there. So we're going to do they're a dual purpose bird. We're going to raise those for meat chickens this year, which I can show you some images and footage of. But yeah, that's kind of what we got going on. Like I said, the name of the game is just trying to do as much as possible for yourself. I mean, that's ultimately what this is all about. And I think it's something we should all strive to do. So, yeah, so that's what we got going on. And, you know, we'll be covering a lot of that type of content here on the channel. So if that's something you're interested in, please subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it if, you know, you found this video, you know, valuable. Please like it. It helps kick it out to more and more people. I'd love to hear from you. Comment, let me know, you know, where you're at and what your plans are and what you got going on. This Cookie Monster theory thing, I'm serious about it. And I think everybody should take things like this when it comes to independence and self-reliance and breaking away from these systems. I think we should all take that much more seriously. So if that's something you also are interested in, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll be bringing much more of that stuff to you. Anyway, I'm Brad Casper. This is Samson the Saint, and till the next one, we're out.